topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert Show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from experts on such topics as legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to our experts in community association law, estate planning law, tax relief, Medicare, public insurance adjusters, neuropathy treatment, business brokers, and personal injury law, along with many other topics. Now here's your host for the last 17 years, Steve O.
Good morning, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Experts radio show where the man was right, 17 years. And speaking of 17 years, our guest this morning, our expert this morning, has been with us almost 17 years. When back in our days, we used to do radio, and we had such a limited audience back then, but now things are different. I'm telling you, folks, if you have an IRS problem, maybe you have a family member or a friend that are trying to handle it themselves, I guarantee you, after today's show, you will be doing them a favor by telling them about Taxation Solutions, one of our longest running shows. And we've actually become friends over the years. I am so blessed to introduce you. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. You might see all these commercials on TV about tax relief. BS. That's all I can say. He won't say it. I will. Folks, this is the greatest tax resolution company in the United States, and you don't ever have to worry about getting ripped off. Good morning, Barry Fowler.
Good morning, man. It's a great Monday morning here, and you've now embarrassed me. We've been on the show and working with you, back on the days of actual radio, AM radio, whether it's in Houston, whether it's Miami. We did locations with you around the country.
Yes.
And, you and I were just talking about like the original time that I came out to see you, because I went, okay, if we're going to do this, is this really going to be good for us? Is this really something I want to do? And you came out and go, man, do we have this great platform? We now video here in studio while we're doing this. So we had done a video out there, and I still remember when when I came in and you're like, what kind of questions, what do you want to answer and everything else? I said, just ask me anything you want. Let's just talk. And you were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I don't need a script. I don't need to know what questions you're going to ask. We're just going to answer the questions, and the knowledge we carry is going to be enough to get us through this. And you just asked me whatever questions you guys had and whatever we had coming in from listeners. And, we've done the show this way from day one.
Yeah.
This show is driven by the people that listen to the show, asking their questions and getting answers and just helping people. That's kind of the great way we get to do this show.
Barry, that's just right. We get about 50 letters a month. First of all, when you do it for this long, you've got a large audience who really respects the show. And with all the questions that we ask you from the audience, first of all, you never know what the question's going to be. And you have never been stumped. That is amazing. I can't say that for all my experts.
When you've been in this industry as long as I have, and you study what we have to do to help people, it's the knowledge that we can bring to the table against the IRS to get the best settlement on their case, on their tax debt, or find them the best way out from underneath of dealing with the IRS and their tax problems. And, that's kind of the beauty of what we do and the knowledge we carry. I have trained numerous enrolled agents or CPAs that have worked for me in this industry to do this, whether it's with us or they go out and decide they're going to do this themselves. We take that knowledge and teach them so that they know as well how to help people and get them out of their tax problems. And that's why Taxation Solutions maintains A+ rating with the BBB, is in part that knowledge that I carry and that I teach the enrolled agents and CPAs that have worked for me and work for me.
Barry, I want to let people know that you have your own show on this station, not TikTok, but on W4CY. Right after this show, what is today's show about?
Today's topic is, hey, if you're selling your business, what kind of taxes? What's the best way to sell your business to reduce that tax burden? And that came from a listener. You tried to give me credit for the topics I come up with, and these topics are coming from the people that listen to our show. So right after this show, 10 o'clock Eastern time on W4CY Radio, or you can go to taxtalk4u.com and follow us over there and never miss an episode as well.
And, I always brag on you about this because I really think there's a lot of companies like yours that listen or watch the show. And I got to tell you, doing the show, as long as we've done, I have never, up until I think I said about 2 months ago, you have always talked about working with truckers, Barry. You even have like a manual out there for them. And you've actually created a business within a business for truckers. And I'm noticing now that I'm starting to see for the first time, because I really do watch these commercials to see what others are saying. And they're first coming out, oh, we work with truckers. They never said this before. Ever. So
Hey,
I know they're watching the show.
As a kid, you remember the game Follow the Leader, right?
Yes.
And that's what they're doing, is they're following after us, is playing Follow the Leader. It's, you've struck a chord when, you have people mimic what you do. And that you're the best in the business because people are following what you did. And, I take it as a compliment. You want to try to compete and follow us, great. Hey, what we're trying to do is help people. And, truckertaxtools.com kind of is that next step in our business, because we helped a lot of truckers solve their tax problems. And what's the next natural thing? Mr. Fowler, can you keep us out of having this problem going forward? And yes, we started doing bookkeeping and taxes for them, doing things for truckers that nobody else ever thought of doing, to provide them top-notch service at a reasonable price to help them. Because guess what? They help us every day. There is nothing you're buying in the stores that hasn't been delivered by a truck. In some way, some fashion, they're moving goods across the country. And so, that includes things at the grocery store, whether you're buying stuff for your house, even your cars are transported by an 18-wheeler to the lots. So everything that you do is dependent on them. So we thought, hey, let's figure out a way to give them something that helps them, keeps them out of trouble, provides them the knowledge to be able to run their business better. And that's why we have truckertaxtools.com. And that's the reason we provide that service. And then, we continue to get truckers that are dealing with other people that have had tax problems or now have tax problems, that we solve other problems and they become a natural client of Trucker Tax Tools. So it's a win-win for them, and being able to have that kind of service.
Barry, I got to say this during the show. Barry has no idea what our show is going to be about today. And that's why we love doing. I got to tell you, I'm looking at TikTok. One of the top provider shows. He's got millions and millions and millions of viewers, has just requested to come on the show as to ask a question. We don't do that right now. What we do, you can write your question in, but it's amazing. You never know who's watching, Barry. So this is something new I'm going to do today. Since we get all these letters in, and I'm going to tell you about concerns that people have about retaining a service that you provide, not you individually, but just companies like yours. And I'm going to let you respond to these people because a lot of them have the same questions. First one is they tell us how embarrassed they are that they're in this situation, Barry. And they're actually embarrassed to face a live person knowing that they have not paid their taxes in years. You see this all the time. So,
hey, Steve, first off, we have a no judgment zone. We're not passing judgment on you. We understand life happens, and that's just the way it goes. Second thing, we haven't been stumped by anybody's question or reason for the problem. Things happen in life. You can't be embarrassed about it. You just got to step up, deal with the problem, be able to use us, and then be able to relax and understand that, hey, this has happened to millions of people across the country. You're just one of them. Every phone call we get, other than scam calls or solicitations, is people with tax debt or a tax problem or going through an audit. Or, hey, you want to hear a new one? Is we had a gentleman that was referred to us by another client of ours, but this person we're going after innocent spouse. And this is a husband whose wife has actually committed fraud, but he had no knowledge of it. And so now we're going after innocent spouse for them so that we can get rid of that liability on him, and it would only be retained on her. We sit here and we look at these things, and we're looking for that equitable relief for the spouse that is actually innocent in all this and had no knowledge that she was doing wrong on the tax returns and not paying the bill that he thought was paid and covered. So kind of interesting case. We've done many innocent spouses before, but we haven't had one in a couple of years. So this was kind of a new one. I don't think we've talked about innocent spouse in a long time.
Actually, we have a question from one of our viewers today asking what is innocent spouse. I have it along with all of our other questions. Barry, we get a lot of wives contacting us stating that their husband is procrastinating and he keeps kind of burying his head in the sand. We've talked about this. And these wives want to know, what can they do to get their husbands to start facing the IRS?
Well, first off, why wait on him? He's going to procrastinate. He's going to stick his head in the sand. He's not going to do anything. Sometimes it's just up to you to pick up the phone and give us a call at 877-996-6477. Again, it's 877-996-6477. It's a toll-free call. It's a free consultation. You can start the ball rolling and figure out with us, kind of what the plan would be going forward, and then get him to either choose to move that way or you choose to move the family that way. It doesn't take both of you to make this decision. You can make the decision. If he's not going to be man enough to man up and deal with it, then, hey, you step up. Take over the reins. Let us help you help and solve the problem for the family. Because if he continues to procrastinate and then all of a sudden the IRS levies the bank accounts and there's nothing to do anything with, nobody in the family is going to be happy. there's not going to be money to make your mortgage payment, make your car payments, pay your utility bills, because the IRS will take everything that's in those bank accounts. And you really got to get something in place ahead of time to stop the IRS and start solving the problem. You can't wait till the IRS takes everything. It's the worst time to call.
Another question that we get constantly is, why should I retain your company versus doing it myself? That's an easy one, isn't it, Barry?
I use my wife on this one. Why retain an electrician when I can do it myself? Because generally when the electrician comes out to solve the problem that I made worse, it costs even more. And I don't make it much easier for that electrician. I actually sometimes make it harder. Same with plumbing. I now think I'm an expert plumber, being out on a ranch and running water lines here and there. Sometimes she looks at me and goes, "Man, you still got leaks everywhere." Okay, we got to call a plumber. Plumber looks at me and goes, "Man, you did this all wrong. We got to tear it all up and redo it." It just cost me more money and wasted time, and didn't get the solution that I needed in place because I was doing it myself. That's the same thing that happens when you're dealing with the IRS. But in this case, you're giving away the roadmap to everything you have. And it makes it easier when you fail to meet the demands of the IRS for them to come in and do that levy of your bank account, garnish your wages. See, they ask these simple and misleading sometimes questions to gather more information from you than they need to have right now, because sometimes you're going to agree to something that you really can't afford, and then you fail, and now they're levying your bank account, they're garnishing your wages, even taking your Social Security if you're on Social Security, or they're going against your pension plan, or now they're looking at taking your house because you have a lot of equity out there. So there's a lot of things that happen that we prevent, and we find the best roadmap to be able to get you that solution to get the IRS off your back so you can actually sleep at night, which makes things a lot easier. Not only that we've dealt with the IRS and you didn't have to, it makes it easier because you know somebody else is dealing with it. It doesn't become an emotional confrontation between you and, if you've got a revenue officer or the agent that's on the phone. We had a person call just the other week, and the agent went, "Well, why did you buy a new truck? That's money you should be paying to us." Well, they needed a new truck. Their truck was really old. They should buy a new truck. They deserve a new truck. Doesn't mean you can't do things. It just means you got to do it in the right way. So that client's feeling really bad and really upset. And now it became an emotional conflict between them and that agent that they were dealing with. And so we've got to step in between, calm things down, and get it right back on the right path per the regulations that the IRS is supposed to follow.
Yeah, I got a letter a couple of weeks ago, Barry, from Conroe, Texas. They saw where your show was coming on. And they had not filed, I think he said, in 4 years. And he said, wanted to know what percent of your clients find out the IRS figures are wrong on what they say you owe. And I was thinking about, if you haven't filed taxes, how would the IRS know what your write-offs are? And they give you a number you owe. Is that correct? I mean, so those numbers would probably be wrong.
If you're a contractor, those numbers are 100% wrong. They don't take any expenses or anything else. If you're married and have kids, they're not taking your kids as a write-off or anything. They're not doing it in your favor in any way, shape, or form. When they do substitute for returns, SFRs, is what you'll hear in our terminology here, is that they do it in the interest of the federal government, not in your interest. They don't work for you. They work for the Department of Revenue. That's section of the government. And what do? They collect money to the United States Treasury. So do they have an interest of doing anything to your advantage? No. Do they know what your write-offs are if you're in business? No. So, you got to go back in and do it. Now, there have been times that we have sat down and done somebody's return, and we looked at the numbers and went, hey, the numbers the IRS has is better, and they've done an SFR. Why don't we go let them accept those? And we'll hold this return because we don't have to file it right now. And we'll use their numbers because one time I've seen it was better. So, but this client was fully honest about all of his income and all his expenses. And he had a lot of cash income and other stuff coming in. And the only thing the IRS accounted for were 1099s. So we held that return, accepted the IRS's return, and then moved forward. The IRS is going to require you to file at least the last 6 years worth of returns. Sometimes they'll go back a little bit further than that, depending on what the revenue officer wants, if you have a revenue officer assigned to the case. But what we're always going to do is look at everything the IRS has in our transcript analysis and determine, hey, that return from 7 or 8 years ago, they haven't done an SFR. There's nothing due on it. So therefore, we're just going to let it be until somebody requires it to be done. So we're going to look at all that. So you may not be required to file all of them. But a lot of times, and most times, I would say 95% of the time, the IRS is completely wrong, and we go in, we fix it, make it right, get it down to the right amount that you owe, and then work on the payment plan or settlement or solution to your problem with the tax debt at that point.
This is from Arthur in Baytown. He wants to know, hey, I appreciate your show. I appreciate the time you give to explain things to us. My question is, how do you qualify for an offer in compromise?
Well, you call one of the other people and you automatically qualify whether you got money or you're broke or you're rich. Hey, it's kind of like being on the Oprah Winfrey show, right? When she gives away, you got a car, you got a car, you got a car. These guys go, hey, you get an offer, you get an offer, you get an offer. That's not the way it works. The IRS has strict requirements. Basically, you've got to have very little income coming in. They're going to look at what your income is, and then they're going to use national standards. It's not, hey, okay, let's say you make $100,000, but you spend $110,000 and you've got all this other debt. Well, your debt payments or your college payments for your kids, these things don't count to the IRS. They're going to limit you to how many cars, 2, if you're married, 1 for you, 1 for your spouse. Your kids' cars don't count. They're going to limit the costs on insurance. They're going to limit housing, utilities, food, clothing. So they have national standards that they limit to. So even if you're above them, it doesn't mean that you can take all those expenses. So the IRS looks at all this stuff, and you've got to go through this whole analysis to determine, do you have the ability to pay? They're going to look at the equity if you own a house. So if you have a lot of equity in your house, that could automatically kick you out of qualifying. So you've got to find different routes to get around this. And, with housing prices where they went over the last few years, there's a lot of people that have a lot of equity in their homes. All of a sudden, they don't qualify because they have that equity in the homes. Now, they may not be able to access it, but we've got to figure that out. And then we've got to figure out a new route around it. So it's a complete analysis that you've really got to go through to determine if you do qualify. Now, there may be some things in your life that you're not doing that can help you qualify. We took a gentleman, and don't everybody jump out and do this, okay? This is something you've got to do an analysis before you decide, hey, this is what's going to work. We had a gentleman that was driving an older car, had a lot of repairs. They had limited costs that they can use per national standards. But if we went out and had him buy a new car and had this car payment, and we got it up to the max allowed by law, then we reduced his available income to nothing. So he qualified for an offer in compromise where that $500 or $600 car payment would have had to go to the IRS. And so now technically the IRS is paying for his car over the next 5 years because he's getting an offer accepted. So little things we do to help you maneuver your financial situation around to make you qualify. We even had a family that came in and really bad suggestion for somebody that is very Christian and everything, but it was, hey, sometimes a divorce works, and getting a divorce would get the husband to qualify for the offer on his past tax debt. So, that would have been a suggestion to him. And they went, really? Can we live together? No, you got to be separate and everything. You got to have your own expenses and everything else out there. But he would qualify. Otherwise, the wife was making way too much money and he would not qualify. So, hey, they're looking at possibly going down that route. That's not for everybody. That is maybe not the right way to do it, but he had more debt than the family could ever pay back to the IRS because of business dealings he's done in the past. So, and made a ton of money. He wasn't making anything now. So there are techniques we use to get through this that, make sense. And some of them are tougher than others, but you've got to sit down and do the analysis. It's not everybody qualifies for an offer in compromise, no matter what some of these other companies say.
Barry, is there ever a time where someone does not have to file?
Well, I recommend you file every year regardless.
Okay.
If you have very little income and you're below the threshold, you wouldn't have to file. If you're just on Social Security and you have nothing else coming in, you wouldn't technically have to file. We tell everybody to go ahead and file regardless. And the part of the reason is if there was ever a problem on there that maybe something you missed, we've seen retirees that get 1099-Rs, but actually don't remember that they pulled money out of retirement or something. It starts the statute of limitations running. It starts the statutes for them to come back and look at returns running. And they're fairly easy to be able to go through and file them, even if no taxes due and even if there's really no income out there. It keeps you in compliance and nobody can ever argue with you that you're not in compliance. So we always tell people, hey, file anyway. Does everybody else do that? No, not necessarily. But like I said, there are reasons to do it, to start the statute of limitations running and the look back periods and everything else. So it makes it easier. And then if somebody was to ask like Medicare or Social Security or something, wanted to see a return, the returns are filed and done. So it makes things a little bit cleaner in life.
This is a great question. This is from Herb in Sugarland. He said, a friend of mine knows about your show and he knew I would be listening today. And he wants me to ask you about a hardship deferral. What is that?
So basically, he's talking about doing a non-collectible status if you're owing the IRS. So that would basically give you at least a couple of years before the IRS would start wanting payments. We will use a non-collectible status if generally you maybe have a lot of equity in your house and you don't have much income coming in right now and you need a time period to get your life back on track. Or maybe you're a retiree and you have a bunch of debt and you don't have any assets. Non-collectible status is sometimes good for you because your income isn't going to change. However, if you're in a position right now to qualify for non-collectible, generally what we would do is take a very close look at all your income, your expenses, your assets, and determine maybe that offering compromise would be the right way to go because it does get rid of 100% of the debt that's out there, less what you've actually got to pay in or what you're offering to compromise the debt. So whether it's, $100, $1,000, $50,000, whatever the number may be, that's what we would basically settle the debt for at that point. But we've got to look at your situation and determine, you may even be coming up with statute of limitations. And one of the things that I hate to see is people going into an offer to compromise when the statute of limitations is coming up reasonably quick, where we can use a different technique of doing a partial pay installment agreement to settle the debt, and the debt goes away because of statute of limitations, as opposed to filing an offer in compromise, which still leaves you on hook for the debt if you fail to stay in compliance over the next 5 years from when it's accepted. And then all of a sudden that you're in a different position, the debt comes back, and now you've got to pay it all plus penalties and interest on top of that. So there's a lot of different things we look at, before we put somebody into non-collectible status. What are the different options that are available to you? What's going to be your best option?
This kind of I know I've got this question on my list. I might go ahead and ask it now. People want to know that they're afraid that there's only one way to qualify, having the IRS negotiate your taxes. They have no idea, Barry, you've got so many things in the toolbox to go up against the IRS. It's not just one thing.
We call it an arsenal here in Texas. Yes, we've got multiple ways that we're going to address the IRS problems. Everybody's situation is different, so we take account everything going on in your situation. What's going to be the best options to get you out of this tax problem and get you out from underneath the IRS. The gentleman we're dealing with right now on innocent spouse. Innocent spouse is the way we're starting out going with him. If for some reason the IRS isn't going to accept innocent spouse, we have other things in our arsenal that's going to be able to get him off and away from this tax debt, to be able to settle this so that he's not the person responsible and that she will be. So we look at every single angle, every single solution to every problem. And we take each one of them individually and look at, hey, maybe we can go this way, maybe we can go that way. And then, hey, what's the good, bad, and ugly of each route that we take? And then we sit down and discuss that with you, our client, and we lay out the pros and cons of going route A or route B, or even if we have to go route C, here's the different ways we can go. And then, hey, this is where you come in to help so you understand, and then help us in making that final right decision. Now we're going to suggest what it's going to be, but you're the one who's going to say, hey, no, I really want to go this way. And then we'll say, okay, we can try that, but here's what is the good and the bad about it. And here's what you should really do, but we can do that. That's kind of unlike anybody else. They just basically say, okay, you're going to get this, and then you go, and then the IRS comes back and says, no, you don't qualify, which we knew you didn't qualify for anyway. And then you get, oh, just a payment plan. All right, have a good day.
This is from TikTok, Barry. They want to know, are you familiar with collection due process hearing?
Yes, we use the CDP hearings, collection due process hearings, more as a collection process in getting what we want. Now, we don't always do the CDP hearings because it does extend the statute of limitations. So if there's another route we can go without extending any statutes, we're going to take it. If we can get a solution in place with, a revenue agent or a revenue officer, and we can get the solution we want, then we will go that way. We're working on a case right now that The lady owes $1 million. They have
Ooh.
the wherewithal to pay that back over the statute of limitations. The revenue officer, instead of accepting what we were willing to offer of $30,000 a month in payments on it, which would pay off all the debt within the statute of limitations by a couple of years, he was wanting, 45 or 55,000, wanting them to sell a house. We went ahead and started to file for a CDP hearing. And instead of letting us go to CDP and saying that, he came back and accepted what was our reasonable plan and avoided having to sell their rental property and avoiding having to pay excess amount of every month. Now the client, is working with us to be able to get that kind of solution out there, but that collection due process hearing can extend those statute of limitations out. And we didn't really want to extend the statute of limitations out. We wanted to make sure that, hey, we get this done and we get it done the right way. So there are ways and techniques that we use to avoid having to go to a CDP hearing, but if we need to use it, we will use it. And when we do use that CDP hearing, we generally are getting what we want out of that CDP hearing, as long as we're being reasonable and we're getting things done the right way. So we do use those techniques out there to be able to do it when we need to.
Here's another TikTok question. I'm going to actually say something on this one. It says, can the IRS seize my bank account without notifying me first? That tells me this person does not have representation, or he would know that. And if you're trying to do this yourself, I hope the show is going to show you that you should hire a company like Taxation Solutions and stop trying to handle this yourself. But go ahead, Barry.
Well, see, the IRS has process. They're going to send you a letter, and they send you a whole series of letters. If you've never opened them and never read them, you wouldn't know anything of what they say. One of the last letters they do send you is a final notice of intent to levy, and they send you a certified letter. Now, just because you didn't open the letter, or you didn't go down and get the letter, or maybe you moved and you never gave them your current address, once they put that letter in the mail, whether you've received it or not, it is considered received. And therefore you have been considered notified. And then therefore they can now levy your bank account whenever they see fit. So no, the IRS is not supposed to, and it does not, when they follow a procedure, levy your bank account without notifying you. But again, if they've mailed them, it's considered received, whether they have the correct address or not, whether you opened the letters or went down and picked them up from the post office or not. So when they're levying, they pretty much almost 99.9% of the time have already notified you in some fashion that they're going to do this. And, matter of fact, when they levy, you got to think of it this way. Anything that your Social Security number is tied to, any bank account, is subject to levy. That means if you got your Social Security number on your kids' accounts, you have your Social Security number on maybe your parents' accounts, all that is subject to levy because your Social Security number is on there. It is like it is your account. So, don't think, hey, I have money or my kids have money. Yeah, but if your Social Security number is on it, that could be the IRS's money as well. And then you've got a real problem of fighting that to get that back.
Barry, how does it affect your credit when the IRS is like garnishing wages, levying accounts? Does that affect your credit?
So when they're garnishing wages and levying your accounts, it's not going to affect your credit. What's going to happen is the IRS is going to put a lien on anything you own. And even though that they don't necessarily report to credit reporting agencies as the IRS saying you have debt, Anybody that's going to give you a loan is going to see that the IRS has a lien on you, and so therefore it's going to affect your credit. So it's something you want to start dealing with to, eliminate that as much as possible if you have the wherewithal to pay tax debt. I've had somebody call me the other day and said, I just want to fight the IRS and I can afford to pay it, but I just don't want to right now. What can we do to fight it? Can we just get a payment plan? I'm like, look, if you got the money to do that, the penalties and interest that are going to be accumulating you over the next year isn't worth doing this. Why do you want to fight the IRS? And I understand that sometimes you want to fight over principle, or sometimes you want to fight over the fun of the fight. But how much is it really worth to you to actually do that when it's costing you way more money in penalties and interest than you can afford to pay it? Hey, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and just pay it off, save yourself a lot of heartache and money. Then if you want to fight over something you think they did wrong, we can fight over that. But don't fight over, paying something back that you actually owe and accumulating more and more penalties and interest on it that, it just exasperates the problem. So let's, be smart about it sometimes and do it. We've had other people go, hey, I want to fight the IRS. I want to go to tax court over principal. Well, how much is principal worth?
Yeah.
I know if you got a lot of money, principal may be worth a lot. But when you don't have a lot of money, a principal costs you everything because you're just going and fighting and you're going to lose. We'll explain it to them exactly the way it is. We get tax procrastinators or I forget what they call them, but the guys that want to fight, that whether taxes is right or wrong. You want to fight that. It costs you a lot of money for that fight. If you want to go to tax court, we got some great tax attorneys that'll love to take your money and fight you with you all the way to tax court, even if you're going to lose, because they like money and they don't mind the fight.
This is another TikTok, wants to know, can the IRS go and speak to my employer or my neighbors?
Yes, and yes. That revenue officer, if you've been assigned a revenue officer, that revenue officer is going to notify you. They can contact everybody and anybody about your tax debt. And we've seen it where they have done it. We were dealing with a revenue officer and this one client, and they decided they needed to do a site visit. And not only did they come out and do a site visit, but this revenue officer started to speak to some of their clients that were coming in.
Wow.
And we're like, man, trying to usher this guy out. We told the client to call a few of his other clients, tell them to delay meetings and stuff like that, because this revenue officer was being vicious. And so we were doing everything we could to direct him and get him out of there as fast as possible. But they have that right to go speak to friends and family, find out that they're looking for is, what are you hiding? Where are your other assets that they can't find? Where are you spending money? Different things that you're doing. You got to remember, these guys, all they're there for is to collect money. They're not there to be nice. They're not your friends. They're not your family. They're there just purely to collect whatever way they can.
Barry, I guess this is probably one of the most important questions that we receive. And it's a person wanting to know, if I sign up with your firm, do I ever have to speak to the IRS again?
Nope, not at all. Matter of fact, you're going to get a welcome packet from us that's going to explain additional things that we would explain on the phone. Is that if a revenue officer or IRS agent is in contact, letters, if you've been in contact with them, they have your number and they can pick up the phone and call you. But now that you hired us and you signed the 2848, which is the power of attorney, which allows us now to step into your shoes and represent you, you just basically tell them, hey, look, taxationsolutions.net represents me. Give them our phone number, and tell them to call us, and then hang up the phone and don't say another word. It makes it that easy. But if that's what you're looking for, what it starts is right here today, making the phone call at 877-996-6477. Again, 877-996-6477. Call us. It's a free call, free consultation. Let's talk to you. Let's tell you exactly what we do and how we do things and how we can help you. If you don't want to make that phone call and you just want to check out what we do and how we do things, go to taxationsolutions.net. Again, that's taxationsolutions.net. Matter of fact, you can even set up that free phone call where we can call you when you're available and start talking about that tax problem. And again, if your husband isn't wanting to do it, hey, set him up that free phone call and have us call him. May put him on the spot and get him to move and get off of it, or do it yourself. I mean, and call us and let us get started representing you, your family, so that we can keep the IRS off your back. But it's a simple call at 877-996-6477. And I know we don't give out that phone number enough. We keep giving out information, but I keep forgetting we got to tell people how to get in touch with us.
Yeah, exactly. So this is really a great question. This is from YouTube. He said, I have been burned not once, but twice by companies like yours. Well, one, Barry's, that's for sure. And what is your advice to me? Why should I sign with you after I've already been burnt twice?
Well, first off, we pride ourselves in being in contact with you, our client, monthly basis. Always staying in touch with you so that you know what's going on and where we're doing. We need your participation, so you've got to help us help you. I know that sounds cliche, but that's the way it works. We can't get financial information without you helping us and providing us the information. We want full honesty and full disclosure from you. You want full honesty, full disclosure from us, and you're going to get that. Then we're going to walk you down this path of exactly where we're going to go, how we're going to get there, and lay it all out to you. Sometimes it takes a few months to do it. Sometimes it takes longer to get everything done. But a lot of this process that we go through is to benefit you. And then we're going to always be in contact. We also want to maintain our A+ rating with the BBB. We don't ever want to see that go away. We're very proud of that. What we try to do is cater and help you, our client, and walk you down this path to make it as simple and easy as possible.
Barry, it's amazing. I'm thinking about you're getting ready to do your show now. And it's like, I could not even imagine what's like doing 2 hours.
This first hour has gone quick, and I mean, I see a notification we only had a few minutes left. I enjoy helping people, enjoy talking. As my wife says, there's not somebody I haven't met that I can't sit and talk to. She looks at me and goes, you just went over to this store, and what'd you do? Why were you there for 30 or 45 minutes? Because, man, all of a sudden we were just talking. Somebody asked about Taxation Solutions, and they went, what do you do? Oh, I do tax relief. We ended up talking about tax relief. Got them as a client. They called in. I said, hey, call us. We'll get you set up. And that's kind of, why I enjoy doing this, is helping people and kind of talking and letting people ask their questions so we can get those things answered. And that's the reason we offer a free consultation and a free call at 877-996-6477. Again, it's 877-996-6477. And now that we're getting close to finishing this show, man, stay tuned right here on W4CY Radio, or go over to W4CY Radio if you're on TikTok or YouTube, and watch Tax Talk for You. Or you can go to taxtalk4you.com. Click the link over there, follow us, and watch our show as well, or catch any of our back podcasts there, iHeart, Spotify, just the same as you can watch our shows with Ask the Experts and all those as well. But, man, I thank you, Steve. Man, I always appreciate this. This is a great show.
I know. Hey, Barry, I always forget to tell you this, but YouTube and W4CY and Facebook promote the shows that are coming up a couple days out. And we get so many letters from people who just recognize the name Taxation Solutions. And they say, you did my aunt, or you handled my father, you did my friend, and just complimentary what a great job your company did. Not a question at all. That's why I probably forget to ask, but just we get so many complimentary letters on the name Taxation Solutions. You've just built up such a great company and such a great reputation, Barry.
I appreciate it, Steve-O. Thank you very much. And man, I always appreciate here being on Ask the Experts and helping people and answering their questions.
You're so good at it. After 17 years, you are so good at it.
We try. But hey, thank you very much. Have a God bless week.
And Barry will be back again twice again next month. Barry, have a great show. We'll see you soon, bro.
Thank you.
That's Barry Fowler, Taxation Solutions. Hey, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you to our TikTok audience. We'll be back again with you next week. Same time, same station. Have a good week, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.